everyone. Hope you're gearing up towards a summer break, or perhaps you're somewhere else and it's turning to the winter season. Wherever you are, as promised, we've got another quick episode to celebrate the ability to get out and about and record in person. And in this episode, I'm in conversation with Lindsey Hall, the Chief Executive for the Real Ideas organisation. And we're at the VIP opening of the Devonport Markethall in Plymouth. And everyone was encouraged to visit the market hall in a sustainable and green fashion. And so I took the opportunity during our current heat wave here in the UK to cycle the 13 miles into town and rock up. And yeah, it was really interesting to be at an event in person, and felt a little bit like we're all going to have to relearn how to network in these current times. So if you've had any experiences like that, I'd love to hear how you found them as well. So Lindsey Hall is the co-founder and CEO of the Real Ideas organisation group, leading and managing the organisation to run its own social enterprise ventures and enable others, particularly young people, to set up and run their own socially entrepreneurial activities, solving problems and building skills. Lindsey's track record in the public and private sectors as a creative social entrepreneur, thinker and leader has seen her set up and develop products and services across the creative, learning and education sectors. Most recently, this has included transforming a former market hall building in Devonport, Plymouth, into an immersive technology centre with the largest immersive dome in Europe. Lindsey is also a NESTA Cultural Leadership Fellow, a Fellow of the Royal Society of Arts, Trustee of Kernow Education Arts Partnership and Plymouth Culture, member of Plymouth Growth Board and one of the WISE 100 social enterprise leaders. During the COVID pandemic, she has advised the government on the role of social enterprises socially and economically during a time of extreme isolation. In this episode, we chat about how listeners can get involved with the Market Hall 15-metre immersive dome, both in terms of content creation, engaging students and developing workplace practice. This is a really interesting collaboration project surfacing university expertise and connecting schools, workplaces, technologists and artists together. Developed by Real Ideas organisation in partnership with Plymouth City Council and the Institute of Digital Art and Technology at the University of Plymouth, the Market Hall is a £7.6 million project which will create a new space for digital, especially those working in immersive and creative applications of technology. So I hope that you enjoy this conversation. In the meantime, we are scoping out our new series, which will be around in September, October. And also just to mention our new self-paced course for launching a podcast, which will also be available in September. You can sign up already if you're interested in hearing about when that launches. And that's about it. Enjoy the episode and take care. Bye. So I am feeling very surreal. I'm in a real world environment with lots of technology and people about, all very well behaved and socially distanced. And I'm delighted to be here with Lindsey from the Real Ideas organisation. So welcome.
Thank you very much. Well, very glad you are here.
And this is a real moment because I've been talking to various people at the Real Ideas organisation since I moved to the southwest about this project, and then obviously COVID hit, and now we're finally here. And it's a real moment, as I said, because you're opening the market hall, you're opening the dome. For our listeners, could you sort of summarise the environment we're in, what it's all about, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so the market hall, how to describe it, how to summarise it. So what it is a grade 2 listed market building. So think sort of Covent Garden. That's sort of, I think, probably most people will know that. And it's in Devonport, which is a brilliant part of Plymouth, but really quite a poor part of the city, so near the dockyard. And it's a building that was built in 1852 as a fruit and veg market, at a time when Devonport was clearly very, very prosperous. Apparently had 4 cinemas and 2 theatres, going certainly in the 1930s before the Second World War. And it was So yes, glorious building is probably the only way to describe it. But when we came into the building about 7 years ago now, it was knee deep in pigeon poo. There were things growing inside it. It was damp, it was dark, it was horrible. And essentially what had happened was bombing in the Second World War had destroyed a lot of the community. The MOD had then moved in and absorbed this area back into the dockyard, built a massive wall around it which fractured the community. So for a while this building housed pots of paint, and then probably for the last 30 years it had actually been derelict and just sort of left on its own. In the early 2000s, Devonport became the site of a massive regeneration project, so 1,500 new homes in this area. But grade 2 listed, beautiful but really awkward building. What do you do with it? So essentially, in the end, the developers approached the city council. The developers clearly went, we don't know what to do. So they sort of, tried to give the city council the building and, a bit of money to sweeten the deal. The city council then phoned us as Real Ideas, as an independent social enterprise, and said, okay, well, we don't want to do it unless you'll actually find something to do with this building, because we, the city council, are not the people to take this sort of thing forward. So we sort of thought about it a bit, and it coincided with conversations that we've been having with the University of Plymouth, and particularly Professor Mike Phillips, around digital art and technology, and how that was a real specialism of the university, and actually that, it was like global, world leading specialism, but all rather invisible as far as the population of Plymouth were concerned, because it was inside the hallowed halls of academia. And so actually, was this the moment to bring it out and to think about creating what we're now describing as an immersive creative technology centre? So a hub, a cluster for creative businesses, for students, to retrain graduates, for the community, for children, and definitely high on our list is that, the 5-year-olds who are living in homes, just outside the, in the community, just the outside of the walls of the building. How do they get opportunities to come and imagine themselves in really different careers and work opportunities and that sort of thing? So essentially, roll forward 7 years, £7.5 million later, and that's where we are.
That's absolutely brilliant. And I remember you recalled the story of Rita, so a 90-year-old current resident who'd lived here during that time that you mentioned, so booming cinemas and everything being prosperous, feeling that was sort of coming back to the area as well. Absolutely.
So, yeah, Rita was lovely. We've had 2 community open days so far, and obviously because of COVID we have to book people in and all that sort of thing. But, massively popular. Lots of people come. And amongst them was Rita, lovely Rita, 92-year-old, and she very determined, fiercely determined. And she came in and she was looking at the building and saying, yeah, this is where I used to come to get fruit and veg with my mum, when I was a child before the Second World War. But she was also great because she was coming in and saying, it's not quite the same shape as I remember. Now, I remember it as an oblong building, not a square one. Which has led us to go, okay, that's really interesting. So actually, maybe in the bombing and the devastation of the Second World War, actually maybe a bit of it's gone missing, and therefore what we've always taken to be the shape of the building isn't how it was. Yeah. She talked to us about the fact that upstairs on the mezzanine, that actually it had been the home for pigeon fanciers. So, there were all these sort of homing pigeons and pigeon lofts, and so it was a very male environment. And so she used to get sent upstairs with a bottle of beer to give, whoever it was, but, women didn't really go up there. But she was really interested. She was very excited by the sort of sense of the fact that here was a part of something she remembered coming back, but not nostalgic. So she wasn't saying it should come back in the way that it had been. What she was saying was, this is really exciting that there's a new use. And so we took her into the dome and played her some content, and she was completely blown away by that, and ever so excited by the sort of actually it was really funny because we showed her a little bit of space content, and she said, I remember when I was 4 years old and I started at Kerr Street Primary School, so that's the primary school that no longer exists, 2 minutes away by the Guildhall. And she said, that's where I went. She said, I walked in and I was 4 years old, and there were two groups. There was a boys group and a girls group. See, I was put in the girls group. But she said, I was listening to what the boys were talking about. The boys were talking about space. And she said, I said to the teacher, is it possible I could go and be part of that group? Because that sounds much more interesting. Yeah. And she was remembering that while she was watching this sort of immersive space content. And so it's I think it has the power to connect people, across ages and across experience, which is very important.
Oh, 100%. And I think more than ever now. So just this experience of being here and people from the universities, from businesses, from schools, and it's exciting. It feels like a long time since this has been the case. And then I was talking to a colleague of yours, and they were sort of mentioning that you do have some schools coming in a couple of weeks or so. Could you talk a little bit about what it will mean to have those school kids come in and how they can get involved as well?
Sure. So I think it sort of works at a couple of levels. So partly it is about inspiring children and young children as much as older ones about the possibilities of where things go. I think their opportunities that they will have. Because one of the challenges a lot of teachers have is actually to keep up to date, with what does work look like? What is it? What are the careers? And it's hard. I completely get it. If you're a teacher and you're in schools all the time, really hard to actually understand, what are the career opportunities? What does this look like? And for many of them, therefore, they're not perhaps very well placed to be able to, engage children in the things that could be the spark that, moves them into a more positive future. And, in lots of ways, parents and families, or some parents and families can fill some of those gaps, but lots can't. And so what we're trying to do here is to say, well, let's make sure that children in this area, actually get to come in and see, and experience the power of, a really new medium, to be the first to understand it, to play a little bit with the tech. So one of the things that we're designing is a sort of Dome in a Day workshop. So the idea that you could actually come in, and it will be a template, but actually to see something that you've drawn or a little piece of film that you've made go from, the abstract into being on that huge immersive screen, and that you've caused that, that I think is very powerful. And for some, they will then go, oh, okay, this is exciting. I want to do something with this, and I want to learn to program, or I want to learn to create, or, whatever it might be. So it's partly about that. And then I think the other bit in terms of schools is also to give them a resource, which means that maybe they could think about how they teach some of the more traditional things in a way that creates engagement for children who struggle. And that's the other part of what we're trying to do. So, we've got lots of content which is about being able to visit spaces that it's hard to visit, for example, go underwater, go into space, all those sorts of things. So, what could we develop? And I don't know the answer to this yet, but what could we develop that, would engage children who might find a textbook a bit dry, but actually, if they could be swimming with sharks, off they go.
And for the content developers, because of the dimensions, does it have to be developed bespoke for the Dome here, or can it be other content that's already out there?
No, so we've got lots of content that's coming from all over the world. Yeah. So at the moment, the content we've got content we're licensing from America, from Canada, from Europe. And, some of that's on straight license deal. We've got content that's being produced by, I suppose, what you might call more like small creative organisations or artists, again, from all over the place. No, there are, it's not quite as standard as, things pinging around on our mobile phones, but it's not too bad. And there is essentially anything that you shoot on a 360 camera. A GoPro that costs less than 500 quid, you can shoot stuff and we can put it on the Dome. And we've seen stuff like that. You can also use quite straightforward software to do basic things. You can program with the same games engines that are used for virtual reality and goggles and all of those types of things.
So like your Unity and
Unity, Unreal, both of those.
I'm just thinking if people are listening in and they're very in the immersive world, then they should come and connect.
They absolutely should come and connect. Yeah. They really should, because we are very interested in how to also connect the work to the general public. And we are, as of the week after next, there will be a public set of screenings every week, Friday night, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, where you can just come in the way that you would go to a venue and see something, and you buy your ticket and off you go.
My head's kind of like joining the dots in all sorts of directions as well, because I know that Derriford is one of the future hospitals, and you could imagine, in terms of scenario training.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And we're talking to Babcock's, for example, who run the dockyard next door, and they're really interested in a lot of that scenario stuff because, they're obviously dealing with, expensive, dangerous things, and you don't want doing that, going off, for real. So absolutely, there is definitely that. We've been talking to Sail GP, the big sailing race that's coming. So they've got 360 cameras on all their boats.
Oh, amazing.
And so, okay, brilliant. So as they're zooming around Plymouth Sound, how do we get all that content and turn it into a show, which means that people who definitely can't go on the water, maybe don't even get up to the Hoe, actually could understand and experience and engage with that. So all of those things are they're happening now. That's, so you sort of doesn't take much to think, okay, a couple of steps and we could be into the world of all sorts of really exciting things.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time. I won't keep you too much because this is your party, so you should definitely celebrate. And thanks again.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you. Bye-bye.
So thanks for listening, everyone. Thank you also to Lindsey, and huge congratulations to the whole team at Rio and all of the partners that made the Market Hall come back to life. It's an incredible building and full of heritage, so that's great to see. If you listen to this episode and you enjoy the EdTech podcast, feel free to share with friends or drop us a review. Otherwise, do take care. Enjoy these next few weeks, and we'll be back around September, October. Bye.